Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love bold and beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in.
The Los Angeles skyline glittered against the night sky, but inside the Forrester Creations executive offices, the glow of the desk lamp reflected the tension simmering in Carter Walton's eyes. Months had passed since his ill-fated entanglement with Katie Logan had left him questioning his instincts, his heart, and his place in the tangled world of the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers. Everyone around him seemed to have found some sense of direction. Rich and Brooke were back together again. Zend had thrown himself into work after the Luna scandal, and even Hope had moved forward from her heartbreak. But for Carter, the silence after work felt deafening. He'd told himself he was fine, that his career, his loyalty, and his strength as a man were enough to fill the void. Until Daphne Reeves walked into his life. Daphne wasn't a Forrester model or an industry insider. She was an accomplished public relations consultant, recently hired to manage Forrester Creations' upcoming fashion collaboration with an international charity organization. From the moment she met Carter in the conference room, her laugh soft but confident, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, there was an easy connection. She wasn't jaded by the world of fashion egos or romantic history. She treated Carter like a man, not a wounded executive with emotional baggage. It was refreshing. When Daphne joked about how Carter's deep voice could make any press release sound like a sermon, he laughed harder than he had in months. Within weeks, what began as professional collaboration turned into late-night dinners, lingering glances, and finally, a kiss that neither could deny. Friends like Ridge and Brooke teased Carter for finally smiling again. Even Katie, though surprised, tried to be gracious when she saw them together at Il Giardino, holding hands over a plate of pasta. But behind Carter's charming grin, there was hesitation. That whisper of doubt that had haunted him since Quinn Fuller's betrayal, since Zoe Buckingham's deceit, and since the collapse of every relationship he'd poured his whole heart into. Daphne was kind, yes, but she was also mysterious. Her stories about her past were vague. An ex-fiancé, who left her devastated. A career setback that brought her to Los Angeles. A fresh start, she refused to elaborate on. Carter told himself not to pry. After all, he had his own share of ghosts. But it wasn't long before the cracks began to show. Legendary. But the idea that someone would intentionally deceive him about a child he loved so completely was almost too much to bear. Carter stepped closer, carefully, trying to convey support without overstepping, because Liam's emotional equilibrium was precarious, a delicate construct ready to shatter with the slightest touch. I don't know the full reasoning, Liam, Carter admitted, voice tight. But I do know this. Steffi thought she was protecting you, or protecting someone else. I don't know if she thought you'd be hurt by the truth, or if she thought she was protecting herself or someone else entirely. But the fact remains, the truth is out now, and you need to know it before it gets twisted any further. Liam lowered his face into his hands, the room spinning, his mind a cyclone of love, betrayal, guilt, and anger, because the world he had known, a world where he was a father to Beth, where every smile she gave him was a reflection of his love and presence, had been upended by a single act of deception, a lie so profound it seemed to reach into his very soul. And yet, in that same instant, Liam's heart clenched at the thought of Beth herself, the little girl who had no part in this, who had loved him unconditionally, and who would now have to navigate the consequences of decisions made by grown-ups in their own tangled, flawed human ways. Carter, I can't. I don't even. Liam's words faltered, but his eyes glistened with tears that refused to be held back, raw and unfiltered, a mirror of the storm raging inside. Carter nodded, silently acknowledging the impossibility of encapsulating the emotional magnitude of the moment in mere words, because there were no words strong enough, no reassurances sufficient, when a person's fundamental understanding of their life and their family had been irrevocably altered. Liam, Carter said finally, his voice gentler. I know it's a lot. But Beth, she's still the little girl you've loved. You've been her dad in every way that matters. This doesn't change what she feels for you, what you've given her, or the bond that's already been built. You have a choice now. Let this destroy you, or let it strengthen you. Let it redefine your relationship, not biologically but emotionally, spiritually, because that bond, that love, it's yours. It always has been. Liam lowered his hands, his gaze distant, staring at the floor as if trying to piece together a new reality from the shards of the old, trying to reconcile the bond he felt, undeniably, with Beth, and the shattering truth that she was not biologically his. While the clock ticked, the world continued outside the office walls, and the future, a delicate, fragile thing, waited for him to decide whether anger, love, forgiveness, or heartbreak would shape the path ahead, knowing that in the universe of the bold and the beautiful, family, love, and betrayal were never separate, that every choice rippled, and that nothing, not even a revelation like this, could undo the layers of connection, passion, and history that bound the Spencers and Forresters together, leaving Liam on the precipice of a new understanding, a new reckoning with the truth about Beth, about Steffi, about the life he thought he knew, and the uncertain, heart-wrenching path that lay ahead in a world where love and deception were inseparable, and every heartbeat carried the weight of both. Liam sat there, frozen, his mind a battlefield where disbelief, fury, and heartbreak clashed violently, each emotion demanding dominance over the others. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, a relentless drumbeat echoing the chaos inside him. I loved her, he whispered hoarsely, almost to himself, not daring to look at Carter again, because in that gaze he would find no comfort, only the reflection of a truth he wasn't ready to face. Carter shifted uneasily, the weight of the moment pressing down on him, knowing that whatever came next would alter Liam's life forever. I know, Liam. I know you did. And you still do. Nothing about that changes, Carter said softly, but Liam's mind refused to register reassurance. It only spiraled further into the what-ifs and whys. In that instant, memories of Steffi's own emotional turbulence flashed in Liam's mind. The time she had cried in his arms, the whispered confessions, the shared laughter, the undeniable connection they had built over the years. And now, that connection was tainted by deception. He gritted his teeth, suddenly standing, pacing in the office like a caged lion. How could she do this? How could she lie about something so sacred? His voice cracked under the strain, and Carter could only watch, silently willing Liam to find a moment of calm, knowing it might never come. Meanwhile, in a sunlit corner of the Forrester mansion, Brooke Logan, Liam's mother, had already sensed the undercurrent of tension. She had received a vague, urgent text from Carter earlier, summoning her to the office, but when she arrived, she found Liam's clenched fists and strained posture, and immediately knew something was wrong. "Liam, sweetheart, what is it?" she asked gently, crossing the threshold, her voice soothing yet filled with maternal concern. Liam turned toward her, eyes red-rimmed, staring at her as if the mere sight of her could anchor him to sanity. "Mom, it's Beth," he stammered, words catching in his throat. Brooke's heart skipped, sensing the gravity in her son's tone. "What about Beth? Tell me." Carter stepped aside, giving Brooke the space she needed to approach Liam, knowing that whatever explanation he provided had to come from the truth, unfiltered and raw. "Brooke, it's not what you think, or maybe it is, I don't know anymore," he began cautiously. Brooke's eyes narrowed, reading the tension between the men. "Carter, just say it," she urged, her voice firm yet trembling slightly. And so he did. "Beth, she's not Liam's biological daughter. The DNA test, it was manipulated. Someone lied, someone made sure Liam never knew the truth." For a moment, silence blanketed the room, thick and suffocating. Brooke's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp barely escaping as the truth settled over her like a storm cloud. "Oh my God," she whispered, tears springing to her eyes. Liam slumped into a chair, burying his face in his hands, his entire world unraveling. "All these years, all this love, it was all a lie," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Brooke knelt beside him, taking his trembling hands in hers, her mind racing with anger and sorrow, because she knew exactly who was responsible. She had seen the way Steffi had always tried to protect her own secrets, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. And then, as if drawn by some invisible thread of intuition, Hope Logan entered the office, her expression instantly hardening as she saw the tension, the heartbreak etched into Liam's every feature. "What's going on?" she demanded, her voice laced with concern and a hint of defensiveness, because in her mind, anything involving Liam and his family instantly demanded her attention, her protection. Carter's gaze flicked toward her, hesitant, knowing the news he carried would devastate her as well. "Hope, it's Beth. There's something you need to know," he said slowly, carefully, measuring each word. Hope's eyes narrowed, a premonition of trouble flooding her senses. "What about Beth? Is she okay?" she asked, stepping closer, tension rippling in her posture. It started subtly, missed calls, canceled dates, and moments when Daphne seemed distracted, staring at her phone with a mix of fear and irritation. Carter, ever the gentleman, tried not to push. He'd been accused of smothering before, and this time he wanted to get it right. But when he noticed her name disappearing from the Forrester employee roster after only 2 months, he couldn't ignore it any longer. Ridge informed him that Daphne had left her position abruptly, claiming a family emergency. When Carter called her apartment, the number had been disconnected. Days later, Daphne reappeared, at his loft, eyes swollen from crying, clutching a duffel bag and begging to stay the night. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. Carter, torn between logic and compassion, let her in. She claimed her ex-fiancé had found her, a man named Cole Vance, who she said had been emotionally abusive, and was trying to control her even after she left him. Carter, protective by nature, offered to help. He called an attorney friend to discuss a restraining order, and even offered to pay for Daphne's temporary housing. But she refused, insisting she'd feel safer with him. Against his better judgment, Carter agreed. For weeks, she lived with him, helping around the loft, cooking dinner, and creating the illusion of a domestic partnership. But then, odd things began happening. Carter's credit card was declined for a dinner meeting. Later, he discovered multiple unauthorized charges at luxury boutiques. He confronted Daphne, who tearfully claimed she had borrowed the card to buy professional clothes for job interviews and had intended to tell him. Carter forgave her, but his gut twisted with doubt. Then came the phone call from a Forrester accountant. A routine audit revealed discrepancies in the PR budget from the campaign Daphne had managed. Several invoices had been falsified, with funds redirected to a shell company under a name Carter didn't recognize, DR Consulting LLC. When he looked closer, he realized the initials matched hers. Carter's world tilted. Betrayal was a taste he knew too well, bitter, humiliating, and personal. He tried to convince himself there had to be another explanation. Maybe she was framed. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. But when he returned home that night, Daphne was gone. So was his spare cash, a few pieces of jewelry, and his laptop. For a man who prided himself on loyalty and integrity, it felt like the final blow. The rebound that was supposed to heal him had instead reopened every wound he'd tried to close. The fallout rippled through Forrester Creations. Ridge was furious. Not only had Carter's personal life once again tangled with company business, but it had risked their reputation with the charity partner. Brooke expressed sympathy but questioned Carter's judgment, while Steffi, pragmatic as ever, insisted on tightening HR protocols. The whispers began: Carter, the brilliant but unlucky romantic, falling for the wrong woman again. The humiliation cut deep. Then came the twist. A week later, Daphne showed up again. Not in person but on the local news. She'd been arrested in connection with an elaborate embezzlement ring targeting multiple Los Angeles corporations. The ex-fiancé she'd spoken of? He didn't exist. He was a name she used in her scams, creating a backstory to gain sympathy and access. When Carter saw her mugshot flash across the screen, something inside him broke, not just from the betrayal, but from realizing how easily he had fallen for another illusion. Finn, who had become a quiet confidant since the Sheila Carter saga, stopped by the loft later that week. "You're not a fool, Carter," Finn said gently. "You're human. You lead with your heart." But Carter didn't feel human, he felt hollow. He thought of the moments Daphne had smiled at him, how real it had all seemed. He remembered telling her about Quinn, about how he'd forgiven someone who destroyed him, and she had held his hand like she understood. Now he wondered if she'd been taking mental notes the whole time, studying his weaknesses like a con artist studying a mark. But the story didn't end with Daphne's arrest. In a shocking turn, her lawyer, none other than Justin Barber, arranged for her to be released on bail pending trial. When Carter confronted Justin at Il Giardino, the tension was electric. "You're defending her?" Carter growled. Justin shrugged coolly. "She's a client, Carter. And she claims you were part of the transactions." The accusation blindsided him. Daphne was turning the tables, painting herself as a victim of Carter's supposed manipulation. Suddenly, the FBI wanted to question him, and Ridge was forced to place him on temporary leave to protect Forrester's reputation. In the following weeks, Carter's life unraveled again. His name whispered in boardrooms, his phone filled with reporters' questions. Only Brooke stood up for him publicly, reminding everyone of his years of loyalty. But privately, even she wasn't sure what to believe. Katie, torn between residual affection and self-preservation, reached out to him. A quiet moment outside Forrester Creations, where she found him staring at his reflection in the glass doors. "You can't keep letting broken women break you," she said softly. Carter sighed. "Maybe that's who I am, Katie. Maybe I fix everyone but myself." As the investigation deepened, Finn and Ridge uncovered evidence that cleared Carter completely. Surveillance footage, bank records, and testimony from another victim proved Daphne had acted alone. She was arrested again, this time without bail, and Carter's name was officially cleared. But the victory felt hollow. Daphne had been more than a fling. She had represented Carter's last attempt to believe that love could be pure, uncomplicated, and kind. Watching her escorted out of the courthouse in handcuffs, he felt no satisfaction, only sorrow for what could have been. Weeks later, Carter returned to work, but something in him had changed. The once romantic optimist had become guarded, almost cynical. When Paris Buckingham tried to rekindle their friendship, he was polite but distant. Even his bond with Ridge seemed strained, the easy laughter replaced by businesslike conversations. It was Katie who finally forced him to face his pain. She invited him to a quiet dinner, no cameras, no pretense. Over candlelight, she told him she still believed in him. Not as a man defined by heartbreak, but as someone capable of learning from it. Carter didn't promise anything, but for the first time in months he allowed himself to smile. And yet, the shadow of Daphne lingered. Months later, Carter received a letter from her, written from prison. It wasn't an apology, not really. She claimed she truly loved him in her own way, that he had made her believe she could change, and that maybe in another life, things could have been different. Carter folded the letter and locked it away. He didn't tell anyone about it, but sometimes, when he stood on his balcony watching the city lights, he thought about how easy it was to confuse love with hope, and how dangerous it was to mistake charm for truth. Still, in the world of the bold and the beautiful, no heartbreak ever lasts forever. In the final moments of the storyline, Carter found himself once again in the Forrester office, helping Steffi prepare for herself to breathe, to feel, to consider the possibility that, against all odds, they could navigate the treacherous waters ahead, that the life she carried could survive the storm of scrutiny, judgment, and heartbreak that inevitably loomed on the horizon. Yet, even as hope blossomed briefly in her chest, the specter of reality loomed like a shadow stretching across the sunlit garden. Every encounter with Finn, every casual conversation with Steffi, every chance meeting with Ridge, Liam, or Hope had the potential to expose them. Every hidden glance, every whispered message, every secretive meeting was a gamble with enormous stakes. Luna's mind raced through scenarios. What if Finn noticed the subtle changes in her demeanor? What if Steffi asked about the timing of her pregnancy? What if Liam caught wind of their clandestine plan? What if Hope, in her relentless pursuit of truth and justice, uncovered the deception before they were ready? The possibilities were endless, each one a potential catastrophe, yet none could diminish the intoxicating reality of the life growing within her, a tangible testament to her audacity and defiance, a secret so powerful it bound her and her lover together in a conspiracy of love, fear, and hope that could withstand almost anything, except the inevitable revelation. And in that moment, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden, Luna felt the duality of her existence with unbearable clarity. The exhilaration of forbidden love and dangerous secrets, and the crushing weight of inevitable consequences. Her secret lover squeezed her hand, a silent promise of loyalty and protection, and Luna knew that whatever storms awaited them, whether Finn's heartbreak, Steffi's fury, Liam's disillusionment, or Hope's righteous judgment. They would face it together, at least until the first cracks appeared, until the fragile illusion of control shattered, and the truth she had worked so hard to conceal came crashing into the lives of everyone she loved, forever altering the tangled web of loyalty, desire, and family drama that defined the world of the Forresters, Spencers, and Logans.